Do you think we are facing this kind of job recession where companies are laying off a lot of people?
The reason a lot of companies are laying off people is not because of an economic situation. The executives of the company say that we have laid off some people. Then what happens is the stock price of that company goes up.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, because the company is cutting costs, it is laying people off. So when institutional investors hear that a company has been rationalizing, it is cutting off jobs. Usually what happens is whenever that information goes out, the stock price of that company goes up. What happened is during pandemic, a lot of companies grew a lot. Because if you look at Amazon, when pandemic happened, people stopped going to stores, people stopped going to grocery stores. So Amazon was being used much more than how much people were using Amazon. Likewise, all the food delivery services, a lot of the food delivery services really grew. Likewise, if you think of Netflix or other medium through which people are consuming content, suddenly
That also grew a lot.
consumption grew because people are not going out, they are not socializing outside, people are spending more time at home, right? So one thing is that Donald Trump, he printed, I think, like $2 trillion or 1.5 or 2.5.
Started. Thank you so much, Subhashish, again to be in my channel. As you know, it's one of the famous channels. It's called Mindfulness with Manish. So today we're going to talk about an interesting topic which everyone is facing. It's called recession in not just the Bay Area but the entire global market. Like people are losing jobs, people are out of jobs because companies are laying off. That is a topic for today's discussion. And again, thank you so much again to be in my channel. I know you from like past 15 years. You have been a pioneer in technology world. You are jack of all trades, play guitar, singing and everything, and you are working for Google, so you know better into like what is happening in the tech world. So that's why I choose you to talk about this particular topic. So again, thank you to be in my channel.
It's always a pleasure to be in your channel, and thank you for inviting me again.
Yeah, so coming back to the topic, why do you think we are facing this kind of job recession where companies are laying off a lot of people, and this is a new trend we are seeing in like from past 2 to 3 years, which we were not seeing before?
I think the reason a lot of companies are laying off people is not because of an economic situation. We are not in recession, first of all. And if you look at performance of Google in this quarter, or if you look at performance of several other like big tech companies, there is no reason to lay off anybody. I think the layoffs are happening for a different reason. Whenever a company is going for a quarterly results announcement, right before that, if they lay off some people, or even during the earnings, if the executives of the company say that we have laid off some people, then what happens is the stock price of that company goes up.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, because the company is cutting costs, it is laying people off. So when institutional investors hear that a company has been rationalizing, it is cutting off jobs, usually what happens is whenever that information goes out, the stock price of that company goes up. So what happens is all the top companies, their executives, C-level staff, board members, all of them have a lot of stocks. And if the stock price goes up,
It's good for them.
they make a lot of money. So laying people off is very good for their
Investors.
money. So I think what happened was, the one thing which is real, what happened is during pandemic, a lot of companies grew a lot. Because if you look at Amazon, when pandemic happened, people stopped going to stores, people stopped going to grocery stores. So Amazon was being used much more than how much people were using Amazon. Likewise, all the food delivery services, a lot of the food delivery services really grew. Likewise, if you think of Netflix or other medium through which people are consuming content, suddenly
That also grew a lot.
consumption grew because people are not going out, they are not socializing outside, people are spending more time at home, right? So a lot of these companies had to hire a lot more people during the pandemic time. Now after pandemic, some of these trends have reversed. Because those trends have reversed, now those companies are finding surplus people, people whom they don't need anymore after pandemic. So they needed to lay people off. So I think there was some reality to it. But the continuation of this layoff trend right now, I think is more for making your stock price go up. I think that's what is going on right now.
Also, do you think AI has a role to play in it?
Yeah. So if you look at it, a lot of jobs which earlier human beings were doing, like manually they were labeling data, they were doing data classification, data processing, lots of things where human intervention was there, and maybe low skilled labor was doing it. It's not like they were paid a lot, but it was still human jobs. Now AI can do it, so you don't need that. Other than data labeling, data classification kind of jobs, even if you look at coding jobs, a lot of coding jobs has already been automated. So I think Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg said in next 2 years, 50% of all Facebook code would be written by AI. Google said 30% of Google's code is already being written by AI. And some of the other companies like financial services companies, they are also reporting 33%, 35% of their code is being written by AIs. So a lot of junior level programmers, like programmers who are coming, people who are coming out of college or universities, they are not yet at a senior level, they are not designing the architecture, or they are just coding. So a lot of those junior level coding jobs have already gone to AI, which is why you are seeing these numbers 50%, 30%. But in the next 5 to 10 years, that number would be much higher. It might be more than 80% of the coding job has gone to AI. And then if you think of product management, same thing with AI. What we'll see in the next few years is a lot of the junior position, like in Google you have APMs, associate product managers. They are L3. Then you have L4 PM. So these are like the beginning of the ladder. In the next 5 to 10 years, you will see a lot of those jobs will go to AI. You will still have senior PMs, senior level, you will still have PMs. So I think that we are going to see all across the industry, like in all kinds of jobs.
Yeah. So when I started my career, when I graduated from my first college was Stony Brook back in 2014, computer science was one of the careers that everyone was choosing, like coding, software engineering, and software field was at the boom during that, and people were getting whatever salary they are asking for from the companies. Now, and as you mentioned, it's not a recession, but the jobs are still cutting off. Getting a job is harder right now, and promotions don't happen these days. Getting a job, sustaining a job, that is most important right now. You are not getting as much salary as you were supposed to get like back in 2020, 2021. So that's where we are living right now. So my question is, now looking 2025, we are looking ahead, which career do you think will be a golden career in the future, or right now, if somebody wants to scratch or do from the basics, like what computer science was in 2014, 2013?
It's very hard to answer right now, because there was a time when the hypothesis was like, if you are more into creative field like music, films, multimedia, painting, if you are in the creative field, those jobs are not going to be taken over by AI. AI is going to take up the coding jobs. AI is going to take up a lot of the medical jobs, diagnosis, robotic surgery. AI is going to take over a lot of jobs which are analytical in nature, which are like mathematics, which can be formulated and which is repeatable. There's a structure to it. But more unstructured activities like making music, writing poetry, writing stories, the prevailing hypothesis was those jobs are not going to go to AI. So the creative field is a good field to go. So that was true until, like, companies like Google was leading the AI innovations, because Google was focusing on coding, on mathematics, on healthcare and a lot of these fields. But with OpenAI, they have gone after the creative field, right? So OpenAI can
Generate songs.
yeah, can generate songs, can
There's an
generate,
app called Suno.
yeah,
Yeah.
they can generate videos, they can
Images,
create
videos.
images.
Yeah.
So all the creatives which you need for magazines or for
Yeah. Can be done
digital
through AI.
campaigns and all, now you can do. So now that AI has proliferated everywhere, it is very hard to say what kind of jobs is still a golden or a safe profession to go towards. One thing you can clearly tell, like jobs which involve physical goods, like
They will remain.
they will
Like food.
yeah, like like if you are making food products, or you are making furniture products or cars.
Cafes, restaurants.
Yeah, so there's whatever is in the real world. If you go into those industries like automobile or aviation, so anything which is in the real world, physical objects in their industry, I think a lot of jobs will be there. I think if you develop a lot of domain knowledge and you develop a lot of domain expertise, where you can be a senior level employee in a field, I think those jobs will still be there, because while AI is going to proliferate a lot of the low level jobs,
Low-level
entry
jobs.
level jobs, I think more senior level jobs will still be there, because you still need the human element of judgment and decision making. But I think in terms of numbers, there will be a huge impact. Like if there were 100 jobs before, overall there will probably be 10 jobs.
Got it. So overall, the summary is like that lot of jobs cutting is happening because of two reasons. Companies hired a lot of people during COVID time. Now the stock price went down because now it's in-person interaction. They have to cut out jobs because the business is not making up to what COVID they were making during COVID time. Second is due to the AI, the automation that AI is giving. Right. Those are two basic reasons. So we are still not in recession. My question is, will recession come in future? And what recession is?
Yes, so recession is when there is a sustained period of economic activity which is in the downturn, right? So in the US, I think the definition of recession is when there are 6 fiscal quarters, when there are 6 subsequent fiscal quarters where the economy has shrunk or declined by a certain amount, then we certify and we say this is a recessionary market, or we are in recession, right? Now, if it's a really, really bad recession, it's a depression, right? Now, it may not yet be recession, but we might be in correction territory. We have still not entered recession, but we are, where the whole economy is slowing down. We can see it, economy has slowed down. So that's a correction, which is, prior to recession. Now, when do we think we'll hit a recession? Again, this is very hard to answer, because few years back, like when Trump was in power, and like the previous term, not this term, and COVID had happened, there were all financial indicators pointing towards a recession. If you see US real estate, we were in a situation where more than 60 million households, more than 60 million people who had taken mortgages, for more than 6 months, they were not able to pay their mortgage. So, in a normal year or under normal circumstances, if you have a situation where more than 45 million people for 6 months cannot pay their mortgage, the real estate market will go into recession. And if the real estate market goes into recession, other industries, so overall it would be like we are in a recession. But two things happened at that time. One thing is that Donald Trump, he printed, I think, like $2 trillion or 1.5 or 2.5. I don't remember the exact number.
Some money was printed.
But between 1.5 to 2.5 trillion dollars was printed, and that money was given to Wall Street, all the institutional investors. So there was a huge spur in economic activity. There was a lot of investment in a lot of startups. There was tremendous amount of uptick in economic activity. So we did not hit recession. So it was an artificial avoidance of that natural, otherwise it would have been a recession. So that happened. And second thing that happened is that it's related, but all these houses where people could not pay mortgages, it did not trigger a recession in the real estate because institutional investors bought all those houses. So in a lot of cases what happened is institutional investors bought the house from the person who is not able to pay down the mortgage, and then like they got the house at a very cheap price, right? So it was good for them, and then in return what they did is they said, I'll rent back the house to you at a lower rent. So it worked for the seller also. So it worked both for the buyer and for the seller. The buyer got the house at a cheaper price, the seller got the house on rent at a lower price. And they also got the money that the institutional investors paid them for the house, right? So these are the reasons why we did not already go into a recession during previous Donald Trump regime when COVID had happened after that. And it is like there is a momentum, economic momentum, because almost 2 trillion or more than that money went into Wall Street and all the investors. We still rode that momentum and we did not get into a recession. But we are at the tail end of that economic wave. Now, in the current economic context, what is happening is that US is levying tariff on a lot of different countries. Like if you are importing goods from a lot of different countries, there are different tariff rates which Donald Trump has formulated. For example, for Chinese goods, there is 145% tariff. For goods from Canada, from goods from Mexico, from goods from India, there's a lot of
tariff
which is very high. Like in some cases, the tariffs are ridiculously high. Like China, 145%, right? But if you think of all those goods which are being imported with that high tariff, how many of those goods we can manufacture in US? It's a very small number. That number is probably 5% or less, which means even if that tariff is imposed, people will have no other option but to pay pay for the tariff, right? So what is going to happen is today if you are buying something and that product is coming from China, you are buying it for $5, you might be paying $10 or $12 for that good once that 145% tariff is imposed, right? So when inflation goes like this, when inflation is going to double, right? In such an inflationary market, recession is
inevitable.
It's inevitable.
So, I saw one of the cameras which I wanted to buy, DJI Pocket 3. DJI is a Chinese company. I have that camera. I got it for 500. Now it's 800. Like straightly on the website, they say because of the current government, we have to increase the prices. Yeah, but as you mentioned, the inflation goes up, the recession, like people will have less buying capacity. Then why government is doing that basically?
So these are the ideas like imposing tariff on import from China or import from Mexico or import from Canada. These are not ideas that Donald Trump had this year or last year. These are ideas he has been having for like last 40 years or so. You can see very old YouTube interviews of Donald Trump. From 1990s you can see his interviews. Even then he was talking about tariffs to China, tariffs to Japan, etc. The intention for enforcing this kind of tariff comes from the idea that US would have had a lot of manufacturing jobs, a lot of assembling jobs, but those jobs are not there in the US because the imports that we are getting from China or from Japan or from Taiwan or other countries, there is not much tariff, so the price of the good is very low. That is the reason why US doesn't have those jobs. US doesn't have those manufacturing jobs. US doesn't have those assembly jobs. Those jobs have gone to other countries. So a lot of people in the US, if you go back in history, if you go back 40 years, 50 years, they used to do factory jobs. They used to do like manufacturing assembly jobs. and they have seen in their lifetime that those jobs have gone away. First those jobs went to Japan, then those jobs went to China, then they went to Taiwan, then they went to other countries, right? uh, so they have seen in their life that we had these jobs and suddenly our jobs went away to other countries. So perhaps some people still believe that if I impose a very high tariff on goods coming from some countries, then US will again be back with assembly jobs or manufacturing jobs. But it's a very misguided idea, because you know how the US economy is, what is the price of labor in the US.
Yeah.
Manufacturing in US is never going to take off like how manufacturing in US was 60 years back.
So he's thinking increasing the tariff will bring back the manufacturing jobs to US. That's the reason. Okay.
Yes.
I see. But yeah, as you mentioned, because of the per hour or the expensive labor prices here, it's never going to happen.
It's not going to happen. So what we need to do instead is we need to understand that the low wages manufacturing jobs, low wages assembly jobs are not going to come back to US ever. So what are the jobs that people from US can actually get? So US is very advanced in technology. Apple is a US company, Amazon is a US company, Google is a US company, right? OpenAI is a US company, Anthropic is a US company. So if you look at AI, for example, US has been so far in a leadership position. So jobs in tech could be jobs, and it is true, like even today there are a lot of jobs in tech, and tech jobs are still growing, right? So this could be like a sector where there could be a lot of jobs. Likewise, jobs which come with higher education, jobs which require a certain barrier of education. So many such jobs can actually come to the US. And even if you build infrastructure, like if you see India, India is a country where the economy is growing at a very fast pace. So one of, India tech sector is growing, India manufacturing is growing, Make in India is there, all those things are there. But one of the things that is happening in India is doing massive investment in infrastructure projects. Highways are being built, a lot of real estate development is going on in hundreds of cities in India. Highways are being built across, touching hundreds of cities in India. So all these different sectors you can invest, and you can jump those sectors, and those sectors can generate a lot of jobs. So the way I think is US should also think like that, and US also should think of job generation in that way, versus thinking, oh, we lost our low paying manufacturing jobs to China and Taiwan and maybe Japan, and let's get them back. Those jobs are not coming back.
And then he's creating immigration issues by throwing cheap labor out of the country, like Mexicans and other who are like doing that kind of job, like basically construction and all. I don't see any like people who are citizens here doing construction job.
So there's a lot of politics involved, which
Yeah.
I would not comment on.
Yeah.
The economics I can comment on, but there's a lot of politics, and I'm a political.
Right. So let's come back to the topic, which is like the job market, and we talked about recession, right? So yeah, so let's talk about people who are getting laid off, right? We talked about like what industries which will be good. You talked about food, and which are basics, like no brainer. But what should they do? Like basically their clock start, they're on visas, right? Their clock starts, they have to leave the country. So what they should do in order to prepare so that they should be competent to handle that kind of layoff in the future.
So first of all, people who are US citizens and who are green card holders, for them it is still sort of okay, because you don't have a ticking timer. You can take your time and you can find another job, hopefully. But for folks who are on H1B or who are on some visas, and if they get laid off, then they have a very narrow time window within which they have to find a job. So I think one of the things is that in this market, one has to be open-minded. If you are not on green card, or if you are not a citizen, you have to be open-minded that maybe I need to go back to India, or I need to go back to my country. And I think people have to accept it, and they have to realize it is okay, and it might be even better. Because right now the tech scene in India is really booming. While jobs are less in the US, it's not like jobs are less in India. There's a lot of startups in India which are coming up. The Indian innovation market is very, very dynamic right now. So going back to India right now is not a bad idea. And in next 20 years, if India evolves into being a real superpower, like in the next 20 years, for sure India will be the third largest economy. India is going to surpass Japan also,
Yeah.
right? So if India becomes the third largest economy, if India is a thriving, dynamic place, this is the time to go back to India. So I think one of the things is people have to stress less, and they have to accept that I may have to go back to India, or I may have to go back to my country, and it should be okay.
You should be okay.
You should be okay, because it's very hard to say that you should specialize in this skill, then you will find a job, because right now the technology market is moving so fast. It's moving much faster than
Yeah, we
you
don't
can
know
predict.
what's going to happen in the future. But what I've realized is like in the past, like 10 years back, it takes like 10,000 people or maybe like 1,000 people to make a company. Right now, it takes like 15, 20 people to make a company, because these AI tools have like taken over marketing, sales, enablement, everything, like even engineering, coding, as you mentioned, everything into one tool. So that is where it is moving. And second thing I've realized is, like, when we were in school, like colleges, we grew up in a culture where teachers used to tell us, you have to get a job, you have to get a placement, right? We were in the placement mind, job, job, job. We've never thought about creating our own company, being entrepreneur, like creating jobs for others, right? Maybe other countries do that, but in India right now the culture has shifted, but before it was not the case. So still I think we are very risk aware, like we don't want to take a risk, because business requires a lot of risk. But I feel like that was we should move towards entrepreneur culture in order to save the job, because we should be giving the job and being the entrepreneur. That's what I think should happen.
See, longer term, things change so much, especially if we are working in the tech sector. It's evolving at such a fast pace, it's changing at such a fast pace. I think there are some things that everyone should think about. One of the things is diversifying your revenue streams. Like, you are not only making money from one job, but you might have your side business. Like, you can start an e-commerce business on Amazon or on Etsy or on Walmart or other platforms where you are selling a product. For example, you can invest in real estate. Uh, if you look at it historically, people don't become rich by being an employee. Employees don't become rich. There are exceptions, like Nvidia employees recently, they became very rich, right? Or when Steve Jobs came back and Apple made the iPod and then the iPhone, and like,
Yeah,
from
revolutionary companies.
yeah, like from almost ashes, like Apple again rose, right? Like, they were like 60 or 90 days away from bankruptcy, and then like
Skyrocketed.
Steve Jobs came back and Apple is Apple, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people made money at that time. If you go back a little further, when Cisco became big, right? So there are these examples of these tech companies where employees became very rich.
I think you have to look at which company and then right time before IPO, whatever the case is, then you can become. That is one example.
But it is a rare example.
Very rare example.
Because it's very hard to
predict
and time and join at that time, right? But so that I would say is like a 1% or 2% case. But if you look at the 90% plus case, employees don't become rich. People who become rich are investors. So I think one of the things that we should think about is, today we have this job, there is no guarantee that this job will be tomorrow. I have a certain kind of job, I don't have guarantee whether this kind of job will be there tomorrow. So upskilling is definitely good, and like, one should always be a lifelong learner. So skilling yourself up, learning new things, whether it's learning AI today or whatever tomorrow, is always good. But I think it's very important to think and learn how to be a good investor, and whatever money you have made till today, making good use of that money. Like, for example, if you have saved $1 million today, if you do investing right, you can turn that into $10 million in 10 years. If you can manage your money very well and make your $1 million into $10 million in 10 years, then in the next 10 years that becomes $100 million. You don't need a job. So for people who have made a certain amount of money, if you are investment literate, Even if you are not investment literate, if you just hire a wealth management firm, a very competent wealth management firm, and if you let them manage your financial portfolio, you probably won't need to work,
Yeah.
right? So instead, there's a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
So one key idea from that book is poor people, they work for money. Rich people, their money works for them.
Yeah.
Right? And the thing is, if you work for money, there's a limitation how many hours you can work for money. But if your money is working for you, your money can work 24 hours for you.
Yeah. That's what they say. You should, like, if you can keep your money in the bank, but there's always like a particular rate of interest that in US we get very less, but putting money somewhere else, like investing in, as you mentioned, in real estate or stocks or somewhere else, like opening a business, can give you much more better folds of money. Yeah, I think we should have another podcast just to talk about investment and what are different strategies of different investment. But I think that's going to take another 1 hour of time. But I think, as you rightly mentioned, people who don't have job right now or they're looking for a job, they should be looking for upskilling their job skills, as well as not scared about like going back if the visa is like the problem. Also starting something on their own or like investing is a key. That's the key. That's what you mentioned. Cool. I think that's probably something which I wanted to chat because a lot of like my friends are in this state and they wanted to ask that question. Anything else? Closing thought you want to talk about before we?
So, a couple of things I will say. I will say that like wholly depending on one job can be risky. Likewise, investing in stocks also might be risky because you are betting on one company. So I think it is a much better idea to invest in an ETF or invest in an index fund or invest in mutual funds, right? And again, like for folks who are not experienced, it might be good to go with a good wealth management company where they are distributing your portfolio. So some amount of investment you might be okay with high risk. Some amount of money you might be okay with medium risk. Some amount of money you may just want to do like how in India you have fixed deposit. In US it is called certificate of deposit, CD, right? So you should look at your money and you should think of how to slice and dice and then which portion you want to do what level of risk in terms of investment. So I think that is one thing to keep in mind.
Sounds good. What are some wealth management companies that you want to recommend?
So there are some in India. I have not tried very extensively wealth management companies in the US. I have tried with Bank of America and was not very impressed. In India, I'm working with a company. It is called Sanctum Wealth. They are a very good company. India has a lot of very good wealth management companies. So besides this, the other thing that I want to say is whether or not we will get into a recession will be completely dependent upon whether or not these high tariffs which have been formulated, whether the government sticks with those tariffs. If the government sticks with those tariffs, inflation is going to go through the roof, we'll enter a recession. But I think this government is also very sensitive to business and is very sensitive to business wise the outcome should be good. So I think it's quite possible that if this government starts seeing that the impact of these tariffs is very negative, they might roll everything back.
Yeah, I've seen like the tariffs which are rolled out to countries except China, they have been like little bit relaxed or maybe something somewhere zero. But China, I think because it's politics, they don't want to see another country in front of them which is developed. That's why they haven't reduced it. But I think I might be wrong. I've seen the tariff has been reduced for China today. But yeah, as you mentioned, if it keeps on going on, then we might see a recession coming up. Cool. I think sounds good. There's more to talk, but I think we should have another session talking about investment and how to manage a portfolio. I think it's a bigger and much wider topic that people will love. Again, thank you so much, Subhashish, to be my channel. I hope you wish good luck and best of luck for the future.
Thank you for inviting me again, Manish. It is always a joy talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.